Lieutenant Commander Jack Reynolds scratched his head as he examined the strange invitation in his hands. The paper, if you could call it that, seemed to shimmer with an inner light, and the symbols across its surface rearranged themselves as he watched, transforming into English letters. You are cordially invited to attend the joining ceremony of the House of Zari. Your presence will honor us greatly as we celebrate this momentous union. Jack set the invitation down on his desk at the human embassy on Arcturus Station. After 3 years working in interspecies relations, he'd received plenty of alien communications, but this one felt different. The Zarkathi were notoriously private about their customs and rarely invited outsiders to their ceremonies. His communication panel chimed. Lieutenant Commander, Admiral Hassan requests your presence immediately. When Jack entered the Admiral's office, he found not only his superior but also 2 serious-looking government officials he didn't recognize. Reynolds, good timing, Admiral Hassan gestured to a chair. I understand you've received an invitation from the Zarkathi. Jack nodded. Just this morning, sir. Some kind of ceremony. One of the officials leaned forward. It's not just any ceremony. This is the royal family's daughter's wedding. No human has ever been invited to such an event. The diplomatic implications are enormous, added the other official. The Zarkathi control 3 star systems with resources Earth desperately needs. We've been trying to establish stronger ties for years. Admiral Hassan slid a data pad across the desk. You're going, Reynolds. This is a direct order from the top. The Zarkathi specifically requested you. Me? Jack blinked in surprise. Why would they ask for me specifically? Your work on the Centauri trade agreement impressed them. You have a reputation for respecting cultural differences. The Admiral's expression softened slightly. Plus, you're single with no family commitments. This mission might require you to be off Earth for up to a month. Over the next week, Jack prepared intensively. The briefings on Zarkathi culture were frustratingly vague about their marriage customs, mentioning only that they were complex and symbolic of their networked social structure. Remember, his cultural advisor said during their final session, the Zarkathi communicate as much through implication as through direct statement. When in doubt, observe others and follow their lead. The journey to the Zarkathi homeworld took 11 days aboard their transport vessel. Jack spent the time studying language basics and reviewing diplomatic protocols. The ship's interior was filled with twisting corridors that seemed to change configuration overnight, and the gravity fluctuated in patterns he couldn't quite grasp. When they finally arrived, Jack wasn't prepared for the spectacle that greeted him. The spaceport was decorated with flowing ribbons in colors his eyes could barely process. A delegation of tall, elegant Zarkathi waited on the landing platform, their silvery skin reflecting the light of their red sun. The honored guest arrives, announced one Zarkathi, bowing deeply. I am Vexlor, appointed to guide you during your stay. Jack bowed in return. Thank you for your welcome. I'm honored by the invitation. Vexlor's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. The honor is entirely ours, Lieutenant Commander Reynolds. The Royal House has prepared special accommodations for you. As they traveled through the capital city in a hovering transport, Jack marveled at the architecture. Buildings seemed to grow organically from the ground, their surfaces alive with shifting patterns. The streets teemed with Zarkathi going about their business, many stopping to stare at the human in their midst. We rarely see humans here, Vexlor explained. And never one so distinguished. Jack laughed nervously. I'm hardly distinguished. Just a diplomat doing his job. Ah, such modesty. Vexlor's translation device made the laugh sound like tinkling bells. Here we are, your residence during your stay. The building before them was smaller than the surrounding structures but elaborately decorated. Inside, a team of attendants waited to show Jack to his rooms. The suite was enormous, with furniture adapted for human physiology and a viewport overlooking a garden of moving plants. This is too much, Jack protested. I'm just a guest at the wedding. The attendant looked confused. But you are the guest of highest honor. These accommodations are appropriate. That evening, Jack was invited to a preliminary gathering at the royal palace. He dressed in his formal diplomatic uniform, making sure the translator device was properly calibrated. When he arrived, the gathering was already underway, with hundreds of Zarkathi mingling in a vast hall with a ceiling that seemed to display the night sky. Announcing Lieutenant Commander Jack Reynolds of Earth, a voice boomed, and to Jack's embarrassment, the entire assembly fell silent and turned toward him. The crowd parted, and a procession approached. At its center walked a Zarkathi female, distinguished by her elaborately patterned skin and the intricate jewelry adorning her forearms. She moved with grace that belied her height. Princess Clara, Vexlore whispered to Jack. The bride. Jack bowed deeply as she approached. Your Highness, thank you for including me in your special day. The princess tilted her head, her eyes blinking in that sequential pattern that Jack was learning indicated surprise. You speak as if you are merely observing, Lieutenant Commander. How charmingly modest. Before Jack could respond to this puzzling statement, 7 other female Zarkathi approached, forming a semicircle around him and the princess. Each was adorned differently but with similar elegance. These are the representatives of the 7 houses, Vexlore explained. Each will participate in the ceremony. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions and rituals Jack didn't fully understand. He was given foods to taste, tokens to hold, and at one point, had his hands painted with intricate patterns using a warm, glowing substance. Throughout it all, the princess and the 7 houses representatives remained close by, watching his reactions with obvious interest. As the gathering concluded, the eldest of the royal family approached Jack. Tomorrow begins the 3 days of preparation, he said solemnly. Your attendants will guide you through each ritual. Remember that each step builds upon the last, creating the bond that will unite our peoples. Jack nodded respectfully, assuming this was diplomatic language about strengthening Earth-Zarkathi relations. Back in his quarters, Jack recorded his daily report for Earth headquarters. Everyone is being incredibly welcoming, he concluded. I'm still not clear on why I specifically was invited, but the Zarkathi seem pleased with my presence. The princess herself made a point of welcoming me. The wedding ceremony itself begins in 3 days, after what they call preparation rituals. I'll continue to represent Earth to the best of my ability. As he prepared for sleep, an attendant arrived with a final gift, a small crystal that pulsed with gentle light. Place this beside you as you rest, the attendant instructed. It will attune your dreams to the harmony of the joining. Jack thanked him and did as instructed, thinking it was just another cultural courtesy. As he drifted to sleep, the crystal glowed brighter, and he dreamed of stars connecting in beautiful, complex patterns. Unaware that this was the first step in preparing him for a role far different from the one he imagined, Jack woke to the soft chiming of bells. The Zarkathi crystal beside his bed pulsed in rhythm with the sound. Through his window, he could see the red sun of the alien world rising over the strange twisting architecture of the city. An attendant entered without knocking, carrying a tray of food and a bundle of cloth. Good morning, honored one, the attendant said, bowing deeply. The first preparation day begins. You must eat and dress for the ritual of recognition. Jack ate quickly, finding the food oddly delicious despite its unusual colors and textures. The clothing turned out to be a robe made of a material that felt like silk but seemed to adjust its temperature to match his body. This is beautiful, Jack said, examining the blue and silver patterns that shifted across the fabric. But isn't this too elaborate for a guest? The attendant's translator device took longer than usual to process this. You are more than guest. The robes signify your status in the ceremony. Jack assumed this meant his status as a diplomatic representative. He followed the attendant through corridors that seemed to breathe and shift around them. They arrived at a circular chamber where Princess Clara and the 7 female representatives waited, each wearing robes similar to his but in different colors. The recognition ritual will connect your essence with ours, explained an elderly Zarkathi who appeared to be officiating. Please stand in the center. Jack did as instructed, feeling awkward as the 8 females formed a circle around him. Each held a small glowing orb. The princess spoke first, in a melodious voice that his translator rendered as, "I recognize your strength and welcome it to complement my wisdom." She placed her orb in his hands. It felt warm and seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. One by one, each of the 7 representatives stepped forward, speaking similar phrases and placing their orbs in his hands. "I recognize your courage and welcome it to complement my patience. I recognize your adaptability and welcome it to complement my steadfastness." Jack tried to remember his diplomatic training. He needed to respond appropriately, though no one had briefed him on this specific ritual. When all 8 orbs were pulsing in his hands, he improvised. "I recognize your welcome and offer my respect in return." The orbs flashed brightly, then floated from his hands, circling above their heads before settling into niches in the walls. The Zarkathi seemed pleased. "The recognition is complete," announced the elder. "The bond has begun its formation." Later, as Vexlor guided him to lunch, Jack tried to clarify what had happened. "That ceremony, was it a formal diplomatic acknowledgement?" Vexlor's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "It is much more intimate than mere diplomacy. You have begun the soul weaving with your intended ones." Jack's translator device flickered at the phrase "intended ones," rendering it as ceremonial counterparts before settling on associates. "I see," Jack said, though he didn't. "And how many more rituals are planned before the actual wedding?" 2 more preparation days, then the final joining. Each ritual builds upon the last, strengthening the connection between you. The second ritual that day involved Jack receiving gifts from each of the 8 females. The gifts were strange but beautiful: a knife with a blade that changed color when he touched it, a map that showed not physical space but what appeared to be emotional connections, a small creature that nestled in his palm and hummed softly. "These represent the qualities we will share in our future together," explained one of the 7 representatives, a statuesque Zarkathi named Zirel. "My gift shows the paths between hearts, which you will now walk with us." Jack thanked her politely, still interpreting everything through a diplomatic lens. Clearly these were symbolic gifts representing their people's future cooperation. That evening, Jack attended a feast where he was seated at the head table between Princess Clara and her father, the imposing Archsovereign of the Zarkathi Dominion. "Your presence honors our house," the Archsovereign said, filling Jack's cup with a shimmering liquid. "When Clara first suggested a human to complete the circle of 8, I had doubts. But you have proven yourself worthy." Jack sipped the drink, which tasted like cinnamon and starlight. "I'm grateful for the opportunity to strengthen relations between our peoples." "Indeed," the Arch-Sovereign nodded. "The union will bring great benefits to both our species. The technology transfers alone will advance Earth's development by centuries." This caught Jack's attention. "Technology transfers?" "Of course. It is customary for the joined houses to share their knowledge. As you will be joined with all 8 houses, the sharing will be extensive." Jack made a mental note to report this promising development to Earth headquarters. Throughout the meal, Jack noticed the 8 females watching him intently. When he caught Princess Clara's gaze, she quickly looked away, her skin flushing a deeper silver. The behavior reminded him oddly of shy human women, which seemed strange for an alien princess. On the second day of preparations, Jack was led to a bathing chamber where he was ceremonially cleansed with scented waters by attendants who chanted continuously. He was then dressed in an even more elaborate robe and led to a garden where the 8 females waited. "Today we perform the binding of paths," explained the elder. "Each of you will share your life's journey with the others." Jack watched as each female placed her hand on a central crystal, which projected images of her life into the air: childhood, achievements, moments of joy and sorrow. When it was his turn, Jack hesitantly touched the crystal. Immediately, images from his life floated around them: his graduation from the academy, his first diplomatic mission, even private moments with family and friends. "Your life has prepared you for this moment," Princess Clara said softly. "Though you traveled a different path, it has led you here, to us." That evening, as Jack prepared his report for Earth, he expressed some confusion. "The rituals continue to be elaborate and highly symbolic. I'm being treated with extraordinary respect, almost as if I were the guest of honor rather than just a diplomatic observer." The princess and the 7 representatives from the other houses are particularly attentive. I believe this bodes well for future relations. On the 3rd day, Jack was brought to a small chamber where a Zarkathi healer waited with strange instruments. We must ensure compatibility, the healer explained, taking samples of Jack's blood and skin cells. Though our studies suggest humans and Zarkathi can form a viable bond, your specific biology must be mapped. For diplomatic purposes? Jack asked, growing increasingly confused. The healer looked puzzled. For the joining, of course. The bond must be physical as well as spiritual. Before Jack could question further, he was whisked away to the final preparation ritual. This time, he and the 8 females stood in a vast chamber before hundreds of Zarkathi witnesses. An intricate pattern was drawn on the floor with glowing material, and Jack was positioned at its center, with the females forming a circle around him. Each female approached, placing a mark on his forehead with the same glowing substance used for the floor pattern. When Princess Clara approached last, she whispered, "Tomorrow we complete what was begun long ago. Our worlds will be forever changed." As Jack returned to his quarters that night, his translator device finally managed to process some of the complex Zarkathi terminology it had been struggling with. A notification flashed on its screen, offering updated translations for key phrases he'd been hearing. Soul weaving was now translated as marriage bond. Circle of 8 became polygamous marriage group. Final joining was simply wedding ceremony. Jack froze, reading the screen again and again. A cold realization washed over him. He wasn't just attending a wedding tomorrow. He was the groom. Jack stared at his translator device in disbelief. The updated translations couldn't be right. He wasn't getting married, especially not to 8 alien women simultaneously. There had to be a mistake. He paced his quarters, running his hands through his hair. "Think, Jack, think," he muttered to himself. All the special treatment, the rituals, the gifts, the odd comments, they suddenly made horrifying sense. His communication panel chimed, interrupting his panic. It was Admiral Hassan. "Reynolds. How are the preparations going? Any diplomatic breakthroughs to report?" Jack tried to keep his voice steady. "Sir, we may have a situation. I believe there's been a massive cultural misunderstanding. The Zarkathi aren't inviting me to attend a wedding, they're expecting me to be the groom." There was a long pause before the Admiral responded. "Yes, we're aware of that." "You're what? You knew?" Jack's voice rose. "Why wasn't I informed?" Admiral Hassan sighed. "It was classified. The diplomatic corps felt you might refuse if you knew the full details. This alliance is too important, Reynolds. The Zarkathi royal family specifically requested a human to join their houses in marriage as a symbol of our species' new relationship. So you just decided to marry me off without telling me?" Jack couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Not exactly. The legal details are complex. Consider it more of a cultural ceremony than a legally binding Earth marriage. The important thing is to go through with it. The technology and resource sharing agreements that will follow are worth trillions." Jack ended the call and collapsed into a chair. How had he missed all the signs? He spent the night reviewing everything that had happened since his arrival, recognizing now what should have been obvious clues. Morning came too quickly. Attendants arrived to dress him in elaborate ceremonial robes that shimmered with patterns resembling both stars and DNA helixes intertwined. Jack felt like he was moving through a dream as they led him to the great ceremonial hall. The hall was enormous, with thousands of Zarkathi in attendance. The ceiling was open to the sky, where their red sun was joined by both moons in a rare alignment. A path of glowing material led to a raised platform where the 8 females waited, each resplendent in their house colors. As Jack walked slowly down the path, murmurs rippled through the crowd. He recognized diplomats from other alien species in attendance. This was clearly an event of galactic significance. The officiator, an ancient Zarkathi with elaborately patterned skin, greeted Jack on the platform. "Today we witnessed the historic joining of houses, the binding of species, the beginning of a new era. Princess Clara stepped forward first, her four eyes blinking in that sequential pattern that Jack now recognized as nervousness. "Will you join your path with mine?" she asked, her voice carrying through the hall. Jack hesitated, his diplomatic training warring with his personal autonomy. Before he could respond, his translator beeped with an urgent message from Admiral Hassan: "Say yes. Earth's future depends on it." I will, Jack said, the words feeling strange in his mouth. One by one, each of the 7 other females asked the same question, and one by one, feeling increasingly trapped, Jack gave the same answer. After the 8th acceptance, the officiator turned to Jack. "Now you must speak the words of binding, joining these 8 houses through you." Jack's translator provided the words, but he hesitated. This was madness. He wasn't ready to be married to anyone, let alone 8 alien women representing political dynasties. Yet beyond his personal feelings, the weight of interspecies relations pressed down on him. "Is there a problem?" the officiator asked, as the silence stretched uncomfortably. Jack began, then stopped. "May I speak freely?" The officiator blinked in surprise but nodded. Jack took a deep breath. "I believe there has been a misunderstanding. On Earth, marriage is a deeply personal choice, entered into with full knowledge and consent. I was not informed that I was to be married today." Gasps echoed through the hall. The princess's skin darkened with what Jack assumed was embarrassment or anger. "You did not know?" she asked, her voice small. "But you participated in the recognition, the binding of paths, the compatibility testing." "I thought they were diplomatic rituals," Jack explained. "My translator didn't correctly interpret the terminology until last night." The officiator turned to the Arch-Sovereign, who had risen from his throne. "Is this true? The human did not consent with understanding?" The Arch-Sovereign approached slowly. "We assumed Earth's diplomatic corps had fully informed their representative. This is unfortunate." Princess Clara stepped forward, her voice stronger now. "In our traditions, true joining cannot occur without informed choice. If Lieutenant Commander Reynolds did not understand, then no binding has yet occurred." The 7 other females nodded in agreement, though Jack thought he detected disappointment in their postures. "Then we must pause the ceremony," the officiator declared. "The human must be properly informed before any choice can be made." What followed was the strangest cross-cultural explanation Jack had ever experienced. Right there on the ceremonial platform, with thousands watching, the Zarkathi explained their marriage traditions. "Our society is built on networks of connection," Princess Clara explained. "The 8 houses represent major political, scientific, and cultural lineages. By joining with representatives from each house, you would create a living bridge between all aspects of our civilization and now, between our species." "It's not just symbolic," added Zirel, the representative Jack had come to recognize as the most forthright. "While the relationship includes what humans might consider romantic and physical elements, it's primarily a position of immense political and cultural influence." Jack absorbed this information, his diplomatic mind working overtime. "And what exactly would be expected of me in this arrangement?" "You would live primarily here, serving as advisor to all houses and representative of human interests," the Arch-Sovereign explained. "You would help guide our species' cooperation, with full access to our technology and resources to share with Earth as appropriate." "And the marital aspects?" Jack asked hesitantly. Princess Clara's skin flushed silver again. "Those develop naturally, as in any joining. There is no obligation beyond what feels right to all involved." Jack considered his options. Refusing would cause a diplomatic incident and potentially set back human Zarkathi relations for generations. Accepting would change his life forever, but could advance human interests in ways nothing else could. "I need time to think," he finally said. The officiator nodded. "That is reasonable. The ceremony will be postponed until you have made an informed decision." As Jack was escorted from the hall, whispers followed him. He noticed the princess watching him, her expression unreadable to his human eyes. Back in his chambers, Jack paced again, but with clearer purpose. He opened a communication channel to Earth. Admiral Hassan, we need to talk. I want the full, unclassified truth about this assignment, and I want it now. The Admiral's face appeared, looking grave. The truth, Reynolds, is that this marriage alliance was proposed by the Zarkathi 6 months ago. They've been studying human culture extensively and became fascinated with our adaptability. They specifically requested someone with your diplomatic record. And you couldn't just ask me? We worried you'd refuse. The stakes are too high. The Zarkathi have technology centuries beyond ours, resources we desperately need, and influence with a dozen other species. Jack sat down heavily. So I'm just a sacrifice for the greater good? The Admiral's expression softened slightly. Not a sacrifice. An opportunity. Think about it, Reynolds. You'd be the most influential human in the galaxy, with the power to shape our species' future among the stars. As night fell, Jack stood at his window, watching the alien moons rise. Tomorrow he would have to give his answer, one that would change not just his life, but potentially the course of human history. Jack didn't sleep much that night. He kept thinking about Earth, about the Zarkathi, and about the 8 women he was supposedly going to marry. As the alien world's red sun began to rise, he finally had an idea. He requested an urgent meeting with the Arch-Sovereign and Princess Clara before any further ceremonial activities. They met in a small chamber with walls that seemed to pulse gently with light. I appreciate you seeing me, Jack began, standing tall in his diplomatic uniform rather than the ceremonial robes. I've been considering your tradition and my position carefully. The Arch-Sovereign nodded gravely. We understand this is unexpected for you. We regret the misunderstanding. I have a proposal, Jack said. One that might preserve the spirit of your traditions while respecting mine. Princess Clara leaned forward, her 4 eyes blinking with interest. We are listening. On Earth, we have various forms of partnerships and alliances that aren't exactly marriage but carry significant weight, Jack explained. What if we created something new, a diplomatic bond that acknowledges the connection between our species without forcing me into a role I don't fully understand? The Arch-Sovereign's skin rippled with what Jack had come to recognize as thoughtfulness. What would this arrangement entail? I propose a provisional alliance bond, Jack said, the term coming to him as he spoke. I would serve as Earth's primary representative to all 8 houses, working closely with each of you. I would live here for extended periods but maintain my Earth citizenship and position. We would build trust and understanding gradually. And the joining aspects? Princess Clara asked softly. Jack chose his words carefully. Those would develop naturally, if at all, without predetermined expectations. In human culture, romantic and physical bonds follow emotional connection, they aren't established by ceremony alone. The Zarkathi exchanged looks, communicating in ways Jack couldn't interpret. Finally, the Arch-Sovereign spoke. This proposal has merit. However, our people expect a ceremony today. The political implications of cancellation would be difficult. Then let's modify the ceremony, Jack suggested. We announce the creation of this new type of bond, the first of its kind between our species. It honors your traditions while creating something new that both our peoples can embrace. The princess nodded slowly. A diplomatic innovation. It could work. While the Zarkathi leadership discussed Jack's proposal, he requested a private communication with Admiral Hassan. Sir, I've proposed an alternative to the marriage, Jack explained. A formal diplomatic bond that gives us most of the benefits without the personal complications. The Admiral looked skeptical. Will they accept it? I think so. But I need to know, what else haven't you told me? Are there other classified aspects to this assignment I should know about? Hassan hesitated, then sighed. The Zarkathi were specifically interested in human genetic diversity. Part of their marriage tradition includes offspring. Jack nearly choked. Children? You were going to let me walk into that without warning me? The details were still being negotiated, Hassan said defensively. Their reproductive technology is vastly different from ours. Jack ended the call, his mind racing with this new information. When the Zarkathi returned, he added this concern to his proposal. Any future discussion of offspring would require separate negotiations and explicit consent, he insisted. The Arch-Sovereign agreed. That is reasonable. We have prepared a modified ceremony based on your suggestion. The 8 houses have accepted the concept of a provisional alliance bond. 3 hours later, Jack stood once again on the ceremonial platform. The crowd was even larger now, as news of the unusual situation had spread throughout the capital. The officiator addressed the gathering. Today we witness not a traditional joining, but the creation of a new bond between species. The human, Lieutenant Commander Jack Reynolds, will form a provisional alliance bond with the 8 houses, marking a new chapter in galactic relations. The ceremony proceeded with modified rituals. Instead of marriage vows, Jack and each representative spoke words of diplomatic commitment. Instead of the binding symbols being placed on his skin, they were embedded in a special uniform he would wear as Earth's representative. When it came time for Princess Clara's part in the ceremony, she approached Jack with unexpected warmth in her eyes. Though this is not the joining we anticipated, she said, her voice carrying through the hall, I believe it may lead to something even more meaningful, a true understanding between our people, built on honesty and mutual respect. Jack found himself smiling genuinely for the first time in days. I share that belief and commit myself to building that understanding. The ceremony concluded with thunderous approval from the assembled Zarkathi. As Jack was introduced to various dignitaries afterward, he was surprised to discover how positively his diplomatic innovation was being received. Quite clever, said an ambassador from a species Jack didn't recognize. The Zarkathi respect creative solutions to complex problems. You've impressed many today. Later, during the celebration feast, Jack found himself seated with the 8 female representatives who were now his provisional allies rather than wives. Without the pressure of impending marriage, the conversation flowed more naturally. I must admit, said Zirel, the forthright representative of the scientific house, I was disappointed at first. But I see now that your solution preserves dignity for all involved. I'm curious, Jack said, looking around at the 8 females. Were any of you informed that I didn't understand what was happening? They exchanged glances before Emivina, the youngest representative, spoke. We were told humans had different customs but that you had been prepared. When you appeared to participate willingly in the preparation rituals, we assumed you understood. Princess Clara added, in our culture, agreement must be explicit at each stage. We thought your participation was your consent. Jack nodded, understanding better now. Cultural misunderstandings can happen even with the best intentions. Perhaps that is why this new bond is appropriate, said Kirva, the representative of the Cultural Exchange House. It gives us time to truly learn each other's ways. As the evening progressed, Jack discovered that his allies were far more than political figures. Zirel was a renowned physicist whose work on dimensional folding had revolutionized space travel. Kirva was a master of 15 languages and an accomplished musician. Princess Clara herself had led diplomatic missions to 12 different species. The Arch-Sovereign approached as the celebration was winding down. Lieutenant Commander, your solution was elegant. The treaty documents incorporating your provisional alliance bond are being prepared. They include the technology transfers and resource agreements originally planned. Jack bowed respectfully. Thank you for your flexibility, your sovereignty. Earth will honor this arrangement. There is one other matter, the Arch-Sovereign added. Your Earth superiors have requested your immediate return to brief them on these developments. Jack felt a momentary disappointment. Despite the chaos and confusion, he had just begun to appreciate the complexity and beauty of Zarkathi culture. When will I return? He asked. The documents specify you will divide your time between our worlds, with your primary residence here, the Arch-Sovereign replied. You are now bound to the 8 houses, even if not in the traditional way. 2 days later, as Jack prepared to board the ship back to Earth, Princess Clara came to say goodbye. Your creative solution has been much discussed, she said. Some traditionalists are unhappy, but most see it as a sign of wisdom. A good marriage or alliance must be built on understanding, not just ceremony. Jack smiled. I look forward to building that understanding when I return. As the ship lifted off, Jack watched the Zarkathi capital recede below him. What had begun as a diplomatic disaster had transformed into something new and promising. He wasn't married to 8 alien women, but he was bound to them and their culture in a way no human had been before. And somehow, that felt right. 6 months had passed since the ceremony on the Zarkathi homeworld. Jack stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed human embassy, watching the strange swirling patterns of traffic in the alien capital city. The red sun was setting, casting long shadows across the landscape of twisted towers and living architecture. Admiring the view again, came a familiar voice behind him. Jack turned to see Princess Clara approaching, her silvery skin catching the last rays of sunlight. He smiled. It still takes my breath away sometimes. After 6 months? Humans adapt quickly, but apparently not that quickly, she said, joining him at the window. Their relationship had evolved in ways Jack never expected. What began as an awkward diplomatic arrangement had grown into genuine friendship. Clara was intelligent, curious about human culture, and possessed a subtle sense of humor that had taken Jack weeks to recognize. The trade delegation from Earth arrives tomorrow, Jack said. First major technology exchange under our new agreement. Clara's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. The quantum computation systems they're receiving will advance Earth's technology by at least 50 years. Your people should be pleased. They are. Though not as pleased as when we sent the medical regeneration technology last month. Jack turned to face her. Earth's diplomats are calling me a miracle worker. If they only knew I almost became an alien's husband by accident. Clara made the chirping sound that Jack had learned was Zarkathi laughter. The story has become quite popular here. Children play games called The Confused Human in schoolyards now. Jack groaned. Wonderful. I'm a cultural icon for all the wrong reasons. His communication device chimed. It was Zirel, the scientific representative who had become his closest ally among the 8 houses. Jack, you're needed in the laboratory. The dimensional fold experiment is ready for observation. Thanks to the Provisional Alliance Bond, Jack had been granted unprecedented access to Zarkathi's scientific facilities. He'd spent countless hours with Zirel, learning about technologies Earth scientists hadn't even theorized yet. I'll be right there, he replied, then turned to Clara. Duty calls. She touched his arm lightly. The Arch-Sovereign requests your presence at dinner tonight. The Vexlorian ambassador has arrived and is quite eager to meet the famous human who created a new form of interspecies bond. Jack raised an eyebrow. Famous, am I? More than you realize, Clara said with a mysterious expression before gliding away. In the laboratory, Zirel was bent over a device that seemed to bend light around itself. Her assistant, a younger Zarkathi named Nivitar, was taking measurements. Ah, Jack. Perfect timing, Zirel said. We're about to attempt the first stable microfolding of space within a controlled environment. Jack watched in amazement as the device activated, creating a tiny pocket where space itself seemed to curl inward. The implications were staggering: instant transportation, new forms of energy production, even theoretical time manipulation. This is what we're sharing with Earth? Jack asked, incredulous. Zirel's skin rippled with what Jack had learned indicated pride. Not yet. But in 5 years, yes, as specified in our agreement. Your people will need to master quantum computation first. Later that day, Jack met with Kirva from the Cultural Exchange House. She had been teaching him Zarkathi artistic traditions, while he introduced her to human music and literature. Your Shakespeare translations have been approved for distribution, she informed him, her voice melodious through the translator. The concept of tragic romance particularly resonates with our younger generation. And how are the human students enjoying Zarkathi poetry? Jack asked. Confused, mostly, Kirva admitted. Your species' obsession with rhyming sounds rather than emotional frequencies is difficult to overcome. At dinner that night, Jack found himself seated beside the Vexlorian ambassador, a tall, insectoid being with compound eyes and metallic exoskeleton.
"Fascinating approach, Lieutenant Commander," the ambassador said.
"When word reached our system about your innovative diplomatic solution, many were impressed." "It was just a practical compromise," Jack said modestly.
"Indeed.
So practical that 3 other species have inquired about forming similar bonds with humans."
Jack nearly choked on his drink. "They what?" The Arch-Sovereign, overhearing, joined the conversation. "It's true. The Mavari Collective has formally requested a provisional alliance bond with a human representative.
As have the Thoraxians and the Chuolan Synarchy."
"But I don't understand," Jack said. "Why would they want that?"
"Your species is new to galactic society, adaptable, and clearly innovative," the Vexlorian explained. "Many see potential in closer ties with humans. Your solution created a framework for such ties without the cultural complications of traditional arrangements."
Later that night, Jack sent an urgent message to Admiral Hassan. The Admiral's response was immediate and enthusiastic. "This is an unprecedented opportunity, Reynolds. 3 more advanced species wanting formal alliances? The diplomatic corps is ecstatic."
"Sir, they're essentially asking for more humans to be put in the same position I was," Jack pointed out.
"Do we even have people willing to do this?" "We've already received 47 volunteer applications," Hassan replied.
"Your reports about Zarkathi technology have made quite an impression.
People are lining up for the chance." Jack shook his head in disbelief.
"And to think, 6 months ago I was panicking about an accidental marriage." The next morning, Jack met with all 8 of his provisional spouses for their monthly council. These meetings had become the highlight of his diplomatic work, 8 brilliant minds representing different aspects of Zarkathi society, all working with him to strengthen ties between their peoples. "The human trade delegation arrives today," he reminded them. "I'd like each house to assign a representative to work directly with them."
Nivina, the youngest representative, spoke up. "I've been studying Earth's environmental restoration projects."
"Your species has made remarkable progress repairing your planet's damage."
"My house would like to contribute to those efforts." "That would be welcome," Jack said, making a note. Princess Clara leaned forward. "There is another matter to discuss.
The success of our arrangement has led to a proposal from the Council of Elders."
"What kind of proposal?" Jack asked cautiously.
"They wish to formalize the Provisional Alliance Bond as an official diplomatic framework. It would be known as the Reynolds Protocol."
Jack blinked in surprise. "Named after me?"
"It was your innovation," Zirel pointed out.
"The first of its kind."
"The Reynolds Protocol would establish guidelines for allied species to form bonds without requiring full cultural assimilation," Plarat explained.
"Your accidental marriage might become the foundation for a new era of galactic diplomacy." Jack couldn't help but laugh. "Admiral Hassan will be thrilled.
He's already planning more alliances."
"We assumed as much," said Kirva.
"Which is why we've prepared training materials for your future diplomats.
They should understand what they're agreeing to, unlike some humans we know."
Jack accepted the gentle teasing with good grace. His life had transformed in ways he never could have imagined. He now split his time between Earth and the Zarkathi homeworld, had access to technologies beyond human imagination, and had formed friendships with beings from another star system. As the meeting concluded, an attendant entered with a message. "Lieutenant Commander, a communication from the Mavari Collective for you." Jack opened the message to find an elaborate invitation, shimmering with strange symbols that shifted as he watched.
"What is it?" Clara asked, noticing his expression.
"An invitation," Jack said slowly.
"To attend a ceremonial integration of diplomatic representatives on the Mavari homeworld." All 8 Zarkathi representatives exchanged glances before breaking into their melodious laughter.
"Perhaps," Princess Clara suggested with twinkling eyes, "you should read the fine print this time." Jack grinned, remembering how this all began.
"Definitely.
And I'll be bringing all 8 of my diplomatic advisors along, just to be safe." As they laughed together, Jack realized that what had begun as the most embarrassing diplomatic blunder in human history had become something wonderful. He wasn't married to 8 alien women, but he had found a family among the stars.